He is the creator and sustainer of all the worlds, whether those worlds are known or unknown to mankind.
Does not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? Hello, my name is Charlie, and you may know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset, and I am here to talk to you today about acting for Mary, also known as Mary in the Via Transformativa. Saint Louis de Montfort tells us that in every action, we should work for Mary, for her interests, for her renown, and for the glory of God. And in the transformative way, we are always striving to work for the glory of God. The glory of God is peace, justice, compassion, relief of suffering. And these are the things that our Blessed Mother wants for us to do. This is the path of transformation and the path of celebration, the way of justice. This is where the rubber really meets the road. This is where we, as followers of Christ through Mary, find ourselves looking at the dreadful state of things. And the first thing we have to tell ourselves, and it's very important, is to remember something Joseph Campbell said. The world is a mess. The world has always been a mess. It always will be a mess. The real hero act, the real thing that we are called to do, is to change ourselves. And in changing ourselves, we become a beacon of light and a beacon of truth, a beacon of compassion and of justice for this world in a way that is truly inescapable. I mean, we can talk about how our Blessed Mother did this in her life. We can talk about how Jesus did this in his life. We can talk about how Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi or any of a number of the great heroes of our world, the first thing that they had to do was change themselves. And think about it, we wouldn't be talking about Malcolm X today if it wasn't for his trip to Mecca and the great conversion that came inside him when he came back as Malik Shabazz. When he saw the world as it truly is for the first time, that brotherhood of all men and women, that world where everything acts in concert and in unity, working ever forward towards hope. All of our great heroes, all of them, they start with this internal change. They start with this interior change, and it has to start there. We have this misunderstanding of the world that we can go out and change it. And that misunderstanding is the root cause of all suffering. Now, I'm not saying that you see injustice and you just let it be. I'm not saying that at all. You know, the freedom riders had to do what they had to do. Those people who sat at those countertops, the bus boycotts, the marches, those things had to happen during the Civil Rights campaign. But they wouldn't have worked if they hadn't taken the time to change themselves first. And if you don't believe me, listen to any of the great civil rights activists from the 60s. It had to start with an internal change. At least the ones that we still remember. Because if you actually go back and look, there were a lot of people that did a lot of things back then, but there are only a few names that stick with us. And those names are the people who actually had the internal change and became a beacon of light. They shone so brightly that to this day we remember them. We remember Cesar Chavez. We remember him. We remember the work that these great men and women did because they had first changed themselves. And more importantly, they taught other people how to change themselves. And in that self-initiated change, they still worked for things to get better. But things would not have gotten better without that initial wave of self-initiated change. And it's just the way of the universe. That is the way of things. That is how everything works. And it's hard for us to understand because it's so much easier to just make a sign or wear a t-shirt or sign an online petition or post something to our Twitter or Instagram and think, oh, I've made change. No. The No Hate campaign failed because while everybody was unanimous in their no hate, we're not going to pass Prop 8 in California, people didn't get out to vote. See, they didn't have the internal change that they needed to have to get them out on the streets. Change takes courage, change takes faith, and change takes hope. If we are not conforming ourselves to the change that we want to see, you want to see a more peaceful world? Be a more peaceful person. It has to start there. It has to. And that's the problem that we have in the world today. So many people on every side of the issue, whatever the issue, so I'm being vague, any issue, pick an issue, think that you can just magically change the world. If we bomb enough people, we can change the world. No. You've changed the world in that the population has changed. You may have upset some people. You may have scared some people. But the great change that needs to happen won't be brought about through external measures. And this is what we have to learn from our Blessed Mother. She pondered all things in her heart, like we must do. Her last words on earth were told in a very early legend when she was assumed into heaven was what she said at the wedding of Cana. Whatever my son tells you to do, do. And those are the words that we have to live by today. And the commandments of Christ are very different from the commandments on Sinai that were delivered by the hands of the angels to Moses. Those commandments are very specific about external action. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And while I'm not saying we should abrogate that list, in fact, I still readily say my vows, which are a different wording of that list, making it what it needs to be, more personal. This is what we have to focus on. What is Jesus' commandments? He gave us 3. He gave us 3 new commandments. 1, love one another as I have loved you. That's hard. I mean, you want to know what the hardest commandment in the Bible to keep? That is the hardest commandment in the Bible to keep. Because how did Jesus love us? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Right? John 3:16. Jesus loved us enough to lay down his life, to die for us. He had that courage of the blood to stand up, be counted, and die for what he believed. And that takes real courage. Killing for what you believe does not take courage. It is a sign of weakness, of cowardice. And we have to love each other the way Christ loved us? Willing to lay down our lives for each other? Ooh, okay, that's hard. To love God with all of our heart, mind, and spirit, and to love our neighbor as ourself. And that second one there tends to be really hard because, okay, we're supposed to love one another as Jesus loved us and love our neighbor as ourselves. So by the transitive property, I'm supposed to love myself as Jesus loves me. Wow. How do we do that? And see, that's the first change. That's the change that brings compassion into our life. When we do things for Mary, we're doing them for our Blessed Mother. We're doing this for our mother. You shouldn't say bad things about yourself around your mother. And think about it. Most of us, when we are around our mother, change the way we speak. Why? Because we have to be respectful. We feel that drive that changes even the words that come out of our mouth. And so we learn to act for Mary, our mother who is always with us, our mother who always has our best intentions at heart, our mother who seeked neither fame nor glory and always wanted the best. This is the hardest change we can learn. When you ask yourself, what would our Blessed Mother do? Our Blessed Mother would give everything so that someone would not feel pain or loss. Our Blessed Mother gave of herself without complaint. Oh, how do we do that? We do it by doing it. Everybody wants a secret to life. Everybody wants a magical formula that makes this kind of internal change easier. And you can practice Musar. Musar helps a lot. For those of you who don't know, Musar is essentially you find a topic that you are wanting to work on, a trait that you're wanting to build in yourself or a trait you're wanting to diminish in yourself. And you find something that you can read on that topic that you can read in short bursts. And you meditate for about 15 minutes. And then as you come out of the meditation, you read. You read whatever that is, you fill up. The meditation empties you out, the reading fills you back up, and then you journal about what you just read immediately. Boom, boom, boom. And you use that to change you. And it does. It is a powerful means of change, but it is not a silver bullet. It is not a panacea. Because you still have to do the change. You have to temper your own anger. You have to temper your own jealousy. You have to temper your own greed. All of us do. And I can tell you from experience, these things are not easy. They're so not easy that we tell ourselves lies like people are who they are and people don't change and a leopard can't change its spots. You know what? Maybe a leopard can't change its spots, but those things that I don't like about myself, I can change. I know this from personal experience. And this is one of the great powers we get from our mother. She helps us. And she helps us even if it's only in some psychological way when we tell ourselves, I'm doing this for my mother. I'm doing this for Mary. I'm doing this for the Blessed Mother. It changes the context in which you act. And in changing that context, you will notice your actions change. It's the strangest thing. It's one of those things that people don't understand how much of the world we make for ourselves in our own mind through the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we accept about both ourselves and how the world is and behaves around us. But that perspective, if we can change it, if we can modify it, if we can make it work for us, or in this case, work for Mary, it changes everything. everything. And we have to ask ourselves how we are going to be willing to do that. What can we do to make that change? So what would you do if you could relieve suffering today? Start with your own suffering. What injustices are affecting you? Because you may not readily see them. Is it hard for you to vote in the area that you live in? Voting rights are a thing. Maybe that's where you should start. Maybe it's balance. How balanced do you feel? How balanced are you in your life? And I don't just mean like, do you have a balanced diet? I mean in everything, in your sense of history. Because I'll tell you right now, if you're looking back on history in any way, shape, or form, and you're like, this group of people did nothing but good, then you are, unless you're talking specifically about the man Jesus Christ, in the first century in Palestine, you can find good and bad things that everyone has done, and you need to have that balance. I mean, even the Gospels record Peter's denial of Christ and Peter's arguments with Paul, thinking he's better than other people, right? And if the Gospels and the New Testament records the failings of the apostles, you're going to find failings in most people. Whether it's the founders of your nation, great military heroes, whatever it is, you're going to find flaws. And having that balance to understand, yes, good people can do bad things, and bad people can do good things. Having a sense of your place and your balance in the universe. Are you always in a city? Try going to a park. I mean, these things may sound simple, they may sound strange, they may sound unnecessary. But these are the ways we start changing ourselves. We have to start by finding that place of sheer and utter honesty where we're willing to admit the flaws of our traditions, the flaws of our beliefs. And I would say that number one is the first thing that you should do. If you feel certain about anything, you're either probably wrong about it or misunderstanding it. That's the one thing that I learn more and more every year, is the more certain I am about something, the more I either misunderstand about it or am just plain wrong. Certainty is a sign of error. It is a serious sign of error. So, as you start going out into the world, and that can be as simple as when you go to the grocery store, when you greet someone, greet them for your mother. Say something kind. Be polite. It's the little things. I say this so often, but it is so important for people to grasp. It is the little things that matter. It's the little things that are important. And any time you are not focused on the little things, because it's easy to get distracted by the big things. It's really easy to get distracted by the big things. But anytime that happens, that's where all of our problems start, continue, and end. Because quite honestly, it's the little things. It's the forgetting to say thank you or please. They're such little things. They're such small words, but they matter so much. It's the little things. The teeniest, tiniest things that are the most important for us to pay attention to. Because we get lost in the big things. We look at what's going on in the world, in the country we live in in the state or province that we live in, the city we live in, maybe even the community we live in. But we forget to think about how we treat ourselves, our friends, our family. How do you treat the cup you drink your coffee, tea, or whatever out of this morning? Because you may think that that's trivial, but that is the first and most important thing that you can do to bring about real change in your life. If you cannot treat your coffee cup with respect, you will never treat anyone with respect, because you've already given yourself permission to behave badly. It really is that simple and that hard all at the same time. And so hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this helps you out, because these are things that don't get talked about a lot, because we want to talk about magic words. We want to talk about magic phrases. And just because we're saying, I'm doing this with Mary, for Mary, in Mary, by Mary, I'm doing this in the name of Jesus, that doesn't sanctify the act that follows. Sanctified actions sanctify the words. So, as we always go to, if we're not doing the 3 things that are required of us, to love kindness, do justice, and walk humbly before our God, if we're not doing those 3 things in everything, there's not an exception, there's not a loophole, there isn't, then we have failed. And so that's what we have to focus on. That's the change we have to bring about in ourselves. And by reminding ourselves that whatever it is, this action I am doing for my mother, for our Blessed Mother Mary, it really does help. It really does. Well, that's it for us today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope this helped you. If this helped you, please spread the word about us. Tell a friend. Share us on your favorite social network. Get in touch with me. You can find me on Twitter at Wisdom Cries Out. Share what you think about us. Tell me, what do you think about us? Leave a review for us and rate us in your favorite podcatcher, however you're listening to this right now. If you've missed this or any of our other episodes, you can find them at our website, wisdomcries.com. Wisdomcry.com. I almost feel like I missaid it so much I need to spell it. WISDOMSCRY.com. Anyway, you can find us over there. Send us a line. Next week we will be talking about mythology, what that means, what that doesn't mean, and why it is so vitally important to your day life. Until next time, God bless.